Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Iowa State Cyclones Live here on the Voice of College Football Network. I'm your host, Levi Stevenson, managing editor over at Wide Right and Natty Light. And back here once again, talk about some Iowa State football after the bye week. After coming off the first win in over a month. And, it feels a lot better to be going into these bye weeks off of wins versus off of losses. That is not to say that Iowa State is not still banged up all to hell. That doesn't mean that we're just in a, we're kind of in a spot where we're playing out games, see what this team can do, see what the young guys look like, and see what kind of bowl game we end up in. But it is both a low pressure spot and a high pressure spot for Iowa State as they head into senior day. It is high pressure in that these last two games are very, very winnable. In Kansas at home and then on the road at Oklahoma State. Now, Oklahoma State has been playing marginally better as of late, but they're still not a good football team. But they should be able to go into these couple of games to finish out the season. And even given the injuries, they should be favorites for both of these. I don't know if the Oklahoma State lines come out. I haven't really even looked at to see what the Iowa State what the line is for this weekend. I guess I could look. Do I say a -5 for Iowa State? -4.5. Yeah. So I would say it's like a 4.5 point favorite, which is probably about right. Then they'll probably be that or better against Oklahoma State, assuming they beat Kansas. But it's a high pressure situation in that you need to. You lost 4 in a row. You got a really, really nice win on the road at TCU. Even if TCU isn't necessarily like the world beater team like we thought they had a potential to be, they're still a good football team. Even though they didn't look like it last weekend, they're still a good football team with good players. And I think, I think that one will still stick out as a really, really nice win at the time. I mean, that was a game we identified on the schedule at the beginning of the season as one of the toughest games on the schedule for Iowa State. Like says, to say we were banged up reminds me of Monty Python. 'Tis just a flesh wound. That is exactly right. Iowa State is just the Black Knight. That's all it is. And we'll see eventually that we'll call it a draw. But you need to finish strong here. Get into bowl season. Winning these last few. Finish strong. Get into bowl practice on an upswing, or as close to as close to an upswing as you can, given all the injuries and all that. But it's also a low pressure situation. Iowa State is not fighting for a Big 12 title game spot. I guess I would assume they're mathematically out of it at this point, but they're not fighting for a Big 12 title game spot. They're not really they're not fighting for bowl contention anymore. They're in a bowl. It's kind of just seeing where they're going to end up for the most part. So it's very low stakes in that the outside circumstances of what happens as far as with what happens this season doesn't really change. All these next two games really will only affect your bowl game, and that's pretty much it. So from that perspective, they really have not a lot to lose. But what they do have to lose is confidence and some momentum heading into the bowl practices and then into the off season. Because right now you are officially in the team will never tell you this. The coaches will never tell you this, and they shouldn't. They should never publicly say this. But right now you are in playing for 2026 mode, and that you're getting young guys ready. Josh Patterson's played really well the last couple games. But he's on his third. He's already played 3 redshirt games. He's got one more redshirt game left. If you think that he is, critical to you winning a football game, I think you play him against Kansas and you try to win that one. And then you don't play him on the road at Oklahoma State. To me, like sacrificing Josh Patterson's red shirt to win one of these, I don't think burning Josh Patterson's red shirt is going to be the turning point, whether or not they win at Oklahoma State. If I were the staff, I would not play him at Oklahoma State unless you were just truly beyond desperate, which I mean, like, they kind of are, but I don't think you like if you part of it will depend on if Jameson Patton is healthy, which he's not this weekend. Um, Maybe he's ready to go for Oklahoma State, but they might just shut him down. But if you have to go Trey Bell, Trey Bell or David Coffey or Quentin Taylor on the other side, and then you've got Marcus Neal, Carson Van Dinter, and Drew Surges, like that's probably a good enough back five to beat Oklahoma State. They're just not very good. That's a good enough five to beat Oklahoma State, and along with a couple other freshmen that maybe not haven't played as much, recently. So I don't think you need to burn Josh Patterson's red shirt going into that, but you can play him against Kansas, manage that. But there's a few other guys too. Like I guess Carson Van Dinter a true freshman or is he a redshirt freshman? This is an excellent question. I just thought of, and I'm slightly ashamed that I don't know this. I feel like I should know this. I consider myself a little bit of an Iowa State nerd, like most of us here. But I am struggling right now to remember if Carson Van Dinter is a true freshman or a redshirt freshman. Carson Van Dinter is a redshirt freshman, so you're not worried about burning redshirt games with him. So you're good there. I would just run that whole group out there. There's nobody left in that group that you're trying to preserve games for. But there's a few other guys. Cam Smith can play a little bit. He hasn't been great, but Cam Smith is again probably good enough to beat Oklahoma State. I would burn a QB red shirt. No, I believe Alex Mansky has only played in 3 games. Let me just check. But I believe he's only been in 3 games. Alex Mansky has appeared, South Dakota, Cincinnati, and TCU. So he's only played in 3 games. So Mansky's still got a game left. I don't know if you really are worrying too much about getting Alex Mansky in. I think right now you'd rather try to get Rocco back up and going. Like right now you're back in the spot where you need to get Rocco going again. So at this point, you're really hoping to be able to treat these couple games. I mean, they're not G5 cupcake teams. Kansas is a solid football team. I mean, they're not great, but they're better than the G5, obviously. Oklahoma State, I'm not sure that they're better than a G5, but I don't think there's a good reason for Iowa State to be playing Alex Mansky. And I mean, I guess if you get to Oklahoma State and they are just ripping it, they're up 40 points or something like that in the third quarter. Maybe throw Mansky in there. You can use his last redshirt game, throw him in there for the fourth quarter and let him sling some balls. But for the most part, I'm not really concerned about making sure you use Mansky's fourth redshirt game. The bowl game technically doesn't count towards redshirt, but I mean, again, you need to get Rocco going. Getting Rocco back in the saddle and getting him back up to speed is priority number 1 for the quarterback position. So I'm not too super worried about getting Mansky in there. Moberly's obviously not on a red shirt anymore. But I also don't know if they I don't know what Mansky and Moberly playing both. Both playing versus TCU was a little bit odd. I thought it was, we're at the point of the season again, where you're not really worried about making sure Mansky gets all 4 of his games, but not too many games type of thing. But it was a little weird to see them both. I thought they could have used one or the other. But they've done this before too in the past where they just they'll bring a guy in, they'll bring a quarterback in, they'll run 2 running plays, and that's just what they do basically. Ballard Sports Media, what's going on? I mean, they did it with Brock Purdy. I mean, in the Ohio game of 2018, they brought in Brock. He ran 1 play for -1 QB keeper for -1 yards. And then they, a few games later, they brought him in versus Oklahoma State, and then the rest is history. They did it. I believe they did it with a little bit with Rocco too. Now Rocco more so got his first playing time on the road in that blowout loss at TCU in 2022. That was his first real playing time. But I believe before that he had gotten a couple QB keepers. So like, for better or worse, this like use redshirt games to give a guy one carry on a keeper is not like an unusual thing for Iowa State. For some reason, that's just something that they do. But for me, I don't really care too much about the quarterback red shirts or anything like that. I just want to get Rocco back up and going, because Rocco will still be your quarterback in 2026. So you want to make sure that he's on a good footing going into the offseason as well. That way, when he's done after next year, then you can bring in Mansky, Mobley, or maybe if you're lucky enough to land Israel Abrams, in this recruiting class, maybe he's you're looking at him potentially as a guy, whatever that all looks like. Or, I mean, honestly, he'd be a true freshman, which I don't think he would love that necessarily. But the other guy they got in the recruiting class too this year, the Oklahoma State flip, is kind of an interesting talent too. I don't know if they think that he's got a real shot at it, or if just, Mansky's the guy, or Mobley's the guy, or whatever. But that's just kind of what that situation is. But really, like I said, the last couple of games here, you're playing to set yourself up for the offseason, set yourself up for 2026. That's really what you're doing here. You're trying to do it in a way that allows you to win these couple football games and finish the season strong, because finishing the season strong, it's a symbiotic set of goals that you can play for 2026 and play for this season at the same time, and saying, okay, we need to get our young guys there, but we're going to do it in a way that makes sense where we can win these couple games and win a bowl game type of thing, and still miraculously finish with 9 wins somehow. So that's how they can approach it this week. You're coming off a bye week, which is good against a team like Kansas that, we saw it last year. They preyed on the young defense, and all their misdirection and everything really, really gave a lot of the young guys that were playing because of injury, gave them tons and tons and tons of fits. Fred says you're wrong. We're playing to stay away from. That's exactly right. I've been on this for like a month now. Is that they need to thread the needle here. They either need to lose these last two to end up below the Liberty Bowl, or they need to win the last two to get above the Liberty Bowl. But if you finish 7-5, you are heading face first straight to Memphis, and nobody wants that. Maybe a couple people do, but nobody wants to go to the Liberty Bowl again. Especially because I don't know if you guys saw it this week, but a whole bunch of bowl prediction services currently have their bowl predictions as Iowa State versus Memphis in the Liberty Bowl. Let me tell you how little I want that shit to happen. Let me see if I can find this. Let me see if I can find an article. Like, I mean, just like any one of these is crazy. They like all say this. All right, let's pull this up here. Yeah. Okay, so let's go down bowl season. Okay, this is not helpful. All right. Okay, right there, two of them. Great. Both have Iowa State versus Memphis in the Liberty Bowl. That's fucked. Yeah, okay, so technically Iowa State is mathematically out now. So ESPN's got us versus Memphis in the Liberty Bowl. Let's see where USA Today has us. Go to hell. Oh, this dumb page. Oh, you sons of bitches. All right, what do we got here? We've got Iowa versus Texas in the ReliaQuest Bowl. That's kind of funny. There's Iowa State. Interesting. Iowa State versus Cal in the Texas Bowl. I don't know if you can think of two like different fan bases, like two more like diametrically opposed fan bases than Iowa State and Cal. You get Cal Berkeley, Cal Berkeley, and Iowa State, the most blue collar farm kid fan base you can think of, all in the same spot. That'd be kind of wacky. In the Texas Bowl in Houston. Let's see here. Here's Bleacher Report. Let's see where Bleacher Report's got us. You guys are gonna do this to me. Oh, of course, those Bleacher Reports. They're gonna do it in 100 pages, whatever. Anyways, point is, currently Iowa State is on so Liberty Bowl. I think the Liberty Bowl is usually December 30th or December 31st. I don't. It's not a. I don't believe it's a January bowl game. Of course, not that January bowl games matter anymore. 2025 Liberty Bowl is. Oh, it is interesting. Usually that's not a January bowl game, but the Liberty Bowl is January 2nd now. That's kind of wacky. Interesting. Huh. Well, hopefully we're not playing on January 2nd. It's a shame that the January bowl game doesn't mean anything anymore. You know, it used to be like, you know, going to a January bowl was a big thing. But doesn't matter anymore. Much like most of bowl season, unfortunately. Anyways, so but if you end up 6-6, you might end up down there down to some other bowl game where I don't know what the bowl packing order is this year anymore, but you know, you can thread underneath the Liberty Bowl if you finish 6-6, or you can get above the Liberty Bowl if you finish 8-4. And that's really what we're shooting for here, is win the last couple here, so that way we can at least end up give me the Rate Bowl in Phoenix against Cal. Or not Cal, or not. Give me the Rate Bowl in Phoenix against Nebraska. I think that'd be fun. I might even go to that one. If it's in Memphis versus Memphis, there is pretty much a 0% chance I'm going to that game. there's just no way I couldn't be less interested in going to Memphis to play Memphis again. But I think when you approach Kansas this time around, you know, last week we saw it. Last year we saw them really prey on that young defense. The misdirection really gave them a lot of issues, especially the linebackers, Ryland Barnes, and them. They had a rough game. And a young Tashawn James had a rough game versus them as well. And it caused a lot of problems. And obviously that was one of the big things that led to that blowout in Kansas City last year. They're still running the same offense. They've still got Jalen Daniels. They don't have, you know, Devin Neal and a bunch of those. And most of their skill players graduated. You know, they've got a couple guys, but for the most part, you know, they're not quite as high flying as they were last year. On a yards per play basis, actually, I'll show you. I'll kind of show you here, kind of where they stand right now. So when you're looking at these two teams together, let me center that up a little bit better. So, you know, on a yards per play on offense, you know, Kansas's offense is, you know, about a points per play is better because they've been better at finishing drives out. But you know, on a yards per play, you know, basis, they're really not that much better than Iowa State, despite, you know, having the offense been, you know, taking a month off basically. The running game is okay. It's not great, but Iowa State's running defense has been very good. Excuse me, as of recent. You know, their defense is, again, it's okay. You know, it's basically on pars, but Kansas doesn't have anywhere in the same neighborhood of injuries as Iowa State does. You know, they're analytically they're very similar to Iowa State. Team Rankings actually has Iowa State as a 2-star confidence pick to win this game, which is more than usual in a conference game. Usually they're at 1-star, for what it's worth. But they also had a 2-star prediction to get for Iowa State at Colorado and stuff like that too. But you know, statistically they're in the same neighborhood. You know, I want to go down here. I don't know. I'm going through all the years here. If we look through here, they've got a couple good receivers here. The Emmanuel Henderson's leading the team there, 41 catches, 638 yards. Cam Pickett's right behind him, and then Bowden Groen as their tight end. After that, it drops off quite a bit, where you're talking about maybe 1 or 2 catches a game. There's a blast from the past there for Iowa State fans. Deshaun Hanukkah hanging out in there, but you know, they spread the ball around to a few people, but they're not a massively prolific offense necessarily. Just in terms of throwing the ball, their running game is sitting heavily. I mean, Jalen Daniels is leading the teams in rushing. It's a lot of read options. And then it's Daniel Highshaw and LaShawn Williams, you know, doing their thing. LaShawn Williams, did he go? He went to Iowa. Okay, I thought he was an Iowa transfer. Yeah, LaShawn Williams, the Iowa transfer. Yeah, so they, it's heavy QB run as it pretty much always is with Jalen Daniels, who is in his 47th season at Kansas. And this is going to be one where you're going to really want to rely on your veteran linebackers to properly read that, to properly gauge that read option and keep Jalen Daniels, Jalen Daniels' run game contained. The big thing in this game, though, I think I really do think here, though, is one of the really good developments we saw from the TCU game was we saw the defensive line play maybe their best game in the last few years. We saw them get real pressure on TCU in the form. Dominic Orange obviously was doing his thing. Then you've got Akini Ziogu had a decent little game. Jace Gilbert had a nice game. They were able to get some pressure from the defensive line, which is a big deal. Last year, if you remember, in Kansas City, the defensive line did nothing because Dominic Orange and J.R. Singleton were both hurt. So like Zamir Hawk, redshirt freshman Zamir Hawk was starting, and they had nothing on the defensive line basically, and they got no pressure on Jalen Daniels all night. And Jalen Daniels basically just sat in the pocket and just shredded the defense up and down the field. You had veteran wide receivers that were very good at finding their option routes and sitting in the holes in the zone, and a quarterback that had all day to wait for them to do that. And that's obviously a recipe for disaster against most quarterbacks, but especially in this offense when you've got, it's reliant on them having smart playmakers that are good at finding spots in the zone because their offense runs tons and tons of option routes. And, being able to take this bye week and really sit down with Drew Surgis and Marcus Neal and Josh Patterson, Quentin Taylor, and Trey Bell, getting to sit down with these young defensive backs for an entire bye week and being able to study this Kansas offense and how they approach things and all their misdirection, what their different reads are, is a really critical thing. Last year, you were going on it wasn't a short week, but you were going in on a normal game week with a really young defense, pretty much all the way from defensive line back, and now you get your linebackers and your defensive line are more experienced. Obviously, your secondary is young, but they can in general kind of sit back and play drop coverage if they really are not sure about some things. They can always just sit back and play drop coverage. That's a thing. It's a nice safety blanket that they always have there, and they shouldn't have, and then they aren't going to have to cover up for the linebackers in theory. Caleb Bacon is supposed to be back per Matt Campbell. Obviously, Cooper Ebel's been a stud this year. He'll be at least a second team All Big 12 linebacker. I'd hope he'd be a first team. I mean, Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech has been amazing, but I mean, to me, the Big 12 first team linebacker is Jacob Rodriguez, Cooper Ebel, and then the kid from Kansas State whose name is completely escaping me at the moment. But I think Cooper Ebel's been one of the best defensive players in the league, not named Jacob Rodriguez this year. He's been really excellent, and I trust him and Bacon to be smart and be able to handle those guys. I'm trying to find the Kansas State linebacker whose name is just completely Austin Romaine. That's what I was thinking. It was Austin Romaine. Those guys need to be smart in the middle of that defense and not bite too much on those read options, because really they're best off to prioritize containing Daniels' run off the read option and letting them run with the running back a little bit, letting Dom Orange stuff up the middle. They're better off just containing Jalen Daniels and making them run vertically, through the A gap. Basically, they're probably better off doing that. But I do think that the development in the pass rush last week versus TCU is notable. We'll see if they can keep it up. I've been harping on him all year, but Akini Ziogu has an NFL body. I mean, he should be, if he had a high motor and a couple more moves in his bag, that kid's a day 2 pick or better as a defensive lineman in the NFL draft in 2026 or 2027, I should say. But he's got to take that step forward. But the athleticism, the size, and the athleticism are all there to be an elite really a really, really high end pass rusher. If he can just put it all together and get that switch to flip on, he's got all the talent in the world to be there. So combine him, Dom Orange, see if you can get some more out of, if Thomas McDonough is healthy enough to do something, that'd be great. It's a bummer that he only got one season with us and he was hurt for half of it. But, Jace Gilbert had a little bit there. Maybe Vontae Malone can get something going. I'm not sure. But if they can get a little bit of pressure on Jalen Daniels and not let him get so comfortable and make him run around a little bit, and then you can put a spy on him. I think that would be an excellent way to try to deal with that running game. Because if Jalen Daniels doesn't have a lot of time to throw and you take away his running game, he's gonna turn the ball over. He's gonna give you the ball. Over the course of his career, he has been a turnover machine. As of the last couple of years, they've calmed down a little bit, but generally speaking, in his career, Jalen Daniels is a turnover machine. So if they can get him sped up, get him, and get him, get pressure on him and not allow him to just sit back all day like he did last year in Kansas City, I think that's a big step forward, because I just don't see, flipping to the other side of the ball here. Kansas's defense is not very good. Especially their rushing defense is really bad. It's quite poor. I'd have to see if I can find some good expected yards per carry and stuff like that on that. But Kansas's rush defense especially is very bad, which is a good matchup for Iowa State, because Iowa State has, for all the struggles of the offense has had the last month and a half, one thing that they've been able to consistently do well is they have been able to run the football, and they're not doing it like 8 yards a carry. They're not doing like some bullshit, like some Art Briles era Baylor 9 yards a carry, slash, late Bob Stoops, 8 yards a carry bullshit like those offenses did. But they're getting, 4 to 5 yards a carry, and they're just consistent. They're not eating, negative plays. They're getting a few. They're getting 2, they're getting 4, they're getting 6, then they'll bust one off for 10 or 12. And then, maybe get one for 20, for 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. And they're able to keep the chains moving. They're able to keep the offense moving down the field at least a little bit with the running game. Carson Hansen's been good since he came off of his concussion. We'll see. Hopefully Abu Sam is healthy. He's been kind of on and off the injury report the last few games. Hopefully he's healthy and ready to go. If he's not 100% ready to go, maybe you see some Dylan Lee, because I think they're going to be able to get some room in the running game. We'll see what, supposedly James Neal's been playing really, really hurt the last few weeks. I don't know. I mean, maybe if he's healthy, then that offensive line gets better. Everybody except James Neal has had a really, really good football season. James Neal has been very, very up and down at that left tackle spot. But if he's been hurt, I don't know what you do with that exactly. But you should be able to run the ball against Kansas. I mean, really, you through the nice A and B gaps like Iowa State likes to run. I think you can really take advantage of that. Some of that stuff. Will you see a lot of read options with Rocco? I don't know. I think they're still trying to kind of protect him a little bit. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. You let him, you give him the green light to scramble when it makes sense, but I don't know that you're running lots of design runs for him at this point. If they're going to do a read option, they're probably going to bring in Mansky or Moberly, I would imagine. But Kansas's pass defense is solid. It's again, it's not world beating, but it's solid enough. And it's not a secondary that Iowa State can't throw the ball on at its best. Now the tricky part here is you did lose Gabe Burkle for the season against TCU, as we kind of suspected last week. Matt Campbell confirmed it this week. He's going to be having surgery tomorrow, I think is what it is. We'll see. I don't know what the injury is exactly. Hopefully he's ready to go by the beginning of next year. We'll see. But yeah, Fred's got this exactly right. In the passing game, if the receivers catch the damn ball, that's going to solve a lot of problems. Now, Rocco has missed some throws, yes, but there's been plenty of throws that have been on target that have not been caught. So they need to catch the damn ball. If they catch the damn ball, the offense should be able to keep it moving with the running game. They can sprinkle in some of the pass here and there just to pick up some, if you have to pick up a long first down conversion or whatever it is to keep the defense off balance. they're probably going to have to sell out a little bit to stop Iowa State's running game. Um, I want to see. This is a game I want to see. I really think the RPO stuff. I think you can get back to that in this game here a little bit because especially if you can establish an early running game, those RPOs will be open because if you can establish that running game early, their defense is going to have to come up. They're going to have to bring some safeties up. They're going to have to help more in that. They're going to have to commit more eyes to the backfield in the running game. So, and Rocco's one of the better, one of the best play action / RPO guys in college football, really, as far as selling that fake goes. So, if you can get them to bite on one of those, that backside post that always seems to go someplace for Iowa State, you know, the backside alert off of that RPO, it can be there. Whether it's Chase Soul, Brett Eskelson, Xavier Townsend, Eli Green, whatever it is, I think that will be there at some point. It wouldn't shock me a lot to see them take another early shot. We did not see the early deep shot against TCU, but it would not shock me at all to see it against Kansas. I think they probably think that they can attack Kansas in a few different places. And, they love to take that shot at home, especially. They love to get after early. So, I mean, this is a winnable football game for Iowa State. Kansas' defense is not particularly scary. The offense is scary from a schematic standpoint just because it's a bad matchup for our defense. But they don't have the super, mega veteran skill players at all the positions like they did last season to be able to do that. Their offensive line isn't quite as good as it was. Jalen Daniels is fine, not great. Jalen Daniels just never took the step forward to being like this fringe Heisman contender like a lot of people thought he was going to be able to be. He's been fine. There's been flashes of brilliance, but just never been all that great. And we took a couple shots for his TC, not like the first or second play of the game shot that we tend to see sometimes at home. But you're right. They did take a couple deeper shots against TCU, and they were dropped, and and the pick that I talked about last week, the pick that off to the left side, it was on the left side of the field to Brett Eskelson. He threw it. It was a corner route that was underthrown, but it was catchable or at least defendable from Brett Eskelson, and he just didn't try. It's that kind of thing. Like the wide receivers got to help. They have to help Rocco out a little bit. It's getting open. It's catching the damn football. And if we get to the point where the wide receivers are catching everything that they can catch, and then Rocco's just still missing throws, we can have a different conversation. But until they get back to catching some of these wide open passes or these really easy balls, that's just what it's going to be right now. And like I said, this game doesn't have to. You don't have to overthink this one, especially on offense. Run the ball and take care of and take advantage of play action RPO opportunities where you can get those safeties to pull up. Defensively, don't give up the big play. In this game, I think you're okay with sitting back just a little bit. Give them the 3 to 5 yard completion, and tackle right away type of thing. Rely on your tackling to get them down. Making Kansas march down the football field is generally not a great strategy for them. They're not super comfortable doing that. They typically prefer to hit more explosive plays, try to get down the field quicker. So if you can take away the explosive plays for Kansas and make them nickel and dime you down the field, at some point they're probably going to give you the football. Yeah, bend don't break is exactly right from Fred. I mean, that's how the defense that's what they're always trying to do. But in this game, I think you can really you can sell out to stop the deep ball. Basically, like if you have to give up, if you're going to stick an extra safety back there just to make sure that you don't get burned deep, in favor, and maybe you give up an extra, an extra couple yards on a short completion or something like that, and just make them do that all day. Jalen Daniels will miss the throw at some point. He might throw it to a defender. He might fumble it. He's kind of chaotic when he has to run around and make plays on the run. And this is a game where you don't play to not lose. Like you don't play prevent defense all game. You still want to get pressure on Daniels and all that, but you don't need to overthink this. I would say it doesn't need to get incredibly aggressive to beat Kansas. You can just play your game. You can play ball control football. You can run the ball, hit some play action stuff. Just keep the passing game moving. It doesn't have to be explosive. It's better if it is, but your passing game doesn't have to be explosive to beat Kansas. Just go out there, take care of business. Don't turn the football over. Don't get beat deep, and you can win this football game. You can win this football game on the leg of Tyler Perkins just flipping the football field once in a while. I know I know that's kind of heresy in our fan base and in our conference. But this game absolutely can be won with field position. I did see a comment there about Florida getting another one. I don't know that he'll get another one as far as another like touchdown, but I would love to see them continue to be aggressive on this stuff. Like if you've got a shot to get some yardage on punt and kick returns, take it, do something with it, see what you can do. That's exactly right. Right now, for the rest of this season, we are trying to win. We're trying to win football games the Kirk Ferentz way. Defense, try to turn some ball overs, turn some guys over if you can. But otherwise, let your special teams and your running game win you that football game. You're trying to win this game with like 2014 Kirk Ferentz Iowa football. Basically, it's just defense, running game, special teams. That's how you're trying to win these football games right now, and that's a perfectly fine way to do it. But that's just what you got to do. You're still by doing that, you're inherently, inherently shrinking the margins a little bit as far as what you can afford to do and still win the game. But like I said, Kansas doesn't do anything incredibly well. They're just kind of doing stuff. They're kind of like those old Cliff Kingsbury Texas Tech teams that like they don't really do anything incredibly well, but once in a while they can hit you with some explosive stuff that kind of makes you nervous and puts you on your toes a little bit, and you might win them a game or two. But they just don't blow you away with a lot of other stuff. It's kind of like that. That's kind of how I would compare them, to those, like the 6-6 Kingsbury Texas Tech teams that are just fine. That's what Texas Tech is. They're fine. They've got a good quarterback. They've got like a couple okay running backs and like a good receiver and a good tight end, but that's nothing that I would say can't manage there. All righty. I probably will not. I'm not going to do a prediction this weekend because I didn't give one for the TCU game and we won that one. So as long as we keep winning, I am not doing predictions.